Good morning, everybody. My name's Ann Rossley. I'm here with my dear friend and colleague, Kyle Harvey, and our go-to key mortgage partner, CarolAnne.Bozarth. Good morning, gals.
Good morning.
Good morning.
We're going to say goodbye to CarolAnne for a second while we start our show, and then we'll bring her back to talk about all good things mortgage. All right. Kyle, hello.
Good morning. Good sunny morning. Thank heavens.
Yeah, absolutely. Happy Monday. So today we're going to talk about stats. We're going to talk about mortgages, and we're going to talk about things in the news. We've got lots to cover. Should I just jump right into the stats here?
Yes.
Okay. So, excuse me. We're not going to talk so much numbers today. We're going to talk trends and pictures. I have it broken down by neighborhood here. And so the first slide shows us over the last few years, number of condos for sale in the various neighborhoods. Blue being Lincoln Park, orange Lakeview, red Westtown, and purple Logan Square. But you can just see, we just don't have the inventory. And this slide shows for near North Loop and South Loop. And again, inventory is starting to creep up a little, but we're still way down versus previous years. Now, look at the condos closed by month in these neighborhoods. We're seeing it come up a bit. November, December last year, we were in the dregs, and now we're coming up, so that's good. And you can see that is the case also in the downtown areas. All right, this is the one I thought was fun to see. Condos average price per square foot is strong. So sales might be off a little, but we're looking good. This is the funky. This is the St. Regis sales.
Yeah.
You know, so that blipped us up. So that's like crazy.
Don't
Anyway.
pay attention to Loop right now.
Yeah, that's not saying that every condo in the Loop has gone up.
Yeah.
Okay, and now here, and this is again the important part: supply.
Yeah.
Condo supply is low, between 1 and 2 months worth of condos, meaning that within a month or two, given the rate of sale, everything will sell if nothing comes on the market.
That's been my experience too with working with buyers. We have to leap.
Go fast.
Okay.
But now look at this. If you look at near North Loop and South Side, it's not as hopping as the outer areas. So again, I see this as a trend, but you know, it's still good market. All right, switching to single family homes again, up and down 10 years. Here's the cycle. But single family homes are not off as much. You know, you'll hear the news saying that sales are off 40%, 35%. It's normalizing here. And again, crazy, but let's look up here. Closed by month. If you just look at 1 month to 1 month, this, you know, June versus June of last year, it's down 32%, but that's just a month.
And this is all inventory. This is all inventory.
And it's all inventory, yeah. Okay, so single family average price per square foot, and these are monthly numbers, but $421 is what it'll cost you to buy a house in Westtown. $513 in Lincoln Park, not a surprise because they have more of the luxury inventory. And Lakeview, $412. Logan Square is hot because it's affordable at $306 per square foot. Month supply of single family homes is a bit higher than condos, which is a switch. Used to be there were more condos on the market than single family homes. And look at this, 2.6, still very much a seller's market. Lincoln Park, 5 months worth of inventory. Again, that's because they have more of the luxury priced homes. Lakeview, 3.2. All right, showings per single family home in June. Westtown, the average single family home got 2.9 showings. Logan, 4.3. Lincoln Park, 2.7. Lakeview, 3.9. Now let's look at condos. Higher. 6.5, 6.96, and 7.9 in Logan Square. Hot. So I asked myself, why, trend-wise, are condos getting more action than single-family homes? And so I went to my friends at Zumper and saw, look at this, year-over-year rents. How insane is that? It costs you 13% more today than it did a year ago to rent a 1-bedroom, 20% more today than last year to rent a 2-bedroom, 20% more than last year to rent a 3-bedroom.
And let's look at here. Let me jump in. Look at the number, the increase. We zoom in for a 1-bedroom. That's $245 more per month.
Yeah.
Year. And for a 2-bedroom, $450. For a 3-bedroom, $500. Who can afford that? That's a huge jump.
That's why they're looking at it. It's making some sense to buy. All right, just a quick slide, and then we'll talk more about mortgages. But here's the Freddie Mac average, 6.96. You know, we're pretty steady up here. So that's where we are with that. Now you
well, I wanted to talk about some of the it is mid-year, and these are national trends, but we can pull out things for Chicago. First, there's good news. We are going back into our regular cycles, more normal cycles. We're not regular yet, but more normal cycles of hot spring, warm fall, quieter summer, though summer's here is pretty active.
right.
And we're likely to have a quiet holiday period. And they say prices are rebounding. Chicago hasn't lost ground, so prices are good here. But they are rebounding around the U.S., and that's positive. And here the real challenge, and we're going to talk more about this in the reality check, is rates and inventory. I mean, it continues to be a real challenge for everyone. Higher rates are limiting inventory and impacting what people can afford to buy. So it's just a real challenge. New listings are declining. We are going sometimes, we change week to week in Chicago. We for a while there had 3 weeks of positive increases, then a little bit down. Chicago's going all over the place.
But we are down in the number of new listings. I didn't show a slide that showed new listings. If I had, it would have corroborated what you just said. I just didn't want to overwhelm everybody with the numbers. But yeah, so the number of listings is slowly going up. But in terms of each week, the number of listings that are added to the marketplace is in fact declining in the Chicago marketplace.
Yeah. And affordability remains a challenge. But Anne is going to share with you a slide that shows how Chicago is doing with affordability versus other places around the U.S. Outlook.
Right.
New construction is growing around the country, offering more options. I don't feel that we're making a huge dent in new construction in Chicago. What's your sense, Anne?
We're seeing new construction, but it's not meeting demand for sure.
Not meeting demand, and that would be hugely helpful. And so they're telling us to expect a moderately active summer. And that's what I'm experiencing. Is that what you're experiencing?
Yeah, absolutely right.
Yeah.
So Kyle was referring to this article, where can the average renter afford to buy a home? They say there are only 4 places, but we happen to be the 5th and right there. And the way they judge this is, can 50% of the renters afford to buy a home in the 50th percentile or an average home? And so they're saying that Buffalo, Pittsburgh, Cleveland, and Detroit are the only places that are over that 50% mark. But Kyle and I, we look at this as a good news story because Chicago's basically there. And wouldn't everybody prefer to live in Chicago than Detroit, Cleveland, Pittsburgh, or Buffalo? So,
and many of the cities below. I mean, Charlotte people love, but many of the other cities below. I think Chicago's a great choice and relatively affordable for renters to move, to shift to ownership.
Exactly. And as we see this trend toward higher and higher rent prices, it makes even more sense. So let's bring in CarolAnne to talk about what's going on with, let me remove this first. Whoops. I removed Kyle instead of adding CarolAnne.
Yeah.
Okay, there she is. Good morning, CarolAnne.
How are you guys? Lots of good stats. Lots of good stats. I love it. And I would definitely agree with Chicago being a better place than those top four cities.
More going,
Yeah.
more going on.
Yeah. So interest
So
rates, yeah, where we are today, we are.
I'm
as
hearing
you-
them say they might be going down. Is
Well,
that possible? What are the experts saying on your end?
yes, it's definitely possible. You know, we've been dealing with this volatile market, as you guys know. And, you know, there's just you know, the question is, as we were talking before the show is, you know, why are we here? What's impacting these markets? And, you know, there's just so many things that impact interest rates in our markets. And it's a very tricky thing to understand. But in general, what I would like to say is that you know, we have our ups and we have our downs, just like the housing market, right? Last week we had some good news on inflation. And what happened? We had a nice little recovery from the peak that we had the week before in rates. So we are still hovering around 7. And so, but we have been higher. So again, do we want to talk about the good news or the bad news? We want to talk about the good news. The good news is we had some good inflation numbers. We saw rates come down at the end of last week. Let's hope that trend continues. But more importantly, you know, we are where we are today and we need to deal with that. And so in talking with buyers and renters in particular, let's roll right into that, since you guys were just talking about, you know, people being able to afford the switch from renting to buying in Chicago. That when we talk about the interest rate being where it is versus 30% increase or 20% increase in rent, it still makes much more sense to buy at this time, because you're investing in yourself. You're, you know, obviously you're building equity in your home versus paying your landlord's mortgage. That's what you are doing when you are renting. You are paying somebody else's mortgage. So, you know, forget about, it's more important to focus on the monthly payment. And when you talk to a lender, and I do this all the time. Clients come to me, should I sign another lease? Should I buy? Let's sit down, let's talk about the numbers. And when I run the numbers for them, they're at the end of it, they're turning into clients for my agent partners to buy, because they see the value.
So I am just going to tell you, and I completely agree with all of this. The challenge is there's not enough to buy, and people are like, well, I don't want to buy what's out there.
Yeah,
That's
that is definitely, that's a challenge. But I'm finding that, you know, my clients that are looking, they're having to be a little bit more patient, and maybe they're not buying, you know, the people that are in flexible lease situations is obviously, that's the most helpful, right? The month to month, or a landlord that is allowing them to go over, because it is taking a little bit longer for people to find the place that they want to, and, you know, to make that investment. But it still is the exercise of renting versus buying. It's really a no-brainer in our city right now. And so whenever these conversations are coming up and people are coming to the end of their lease and they're trying to decide what they should do, having a consultation with a lender to run the numbers is imperative.
So
now let's say, go ahead, Kyle.
No, I was saying, I've talked to my rental clients who are looking to buy.
Mm-hmm.
And I say, and they don't know if they can get out of their lease. They don't know what the lease terms mean to them.
Mm-hmm.
And I counsel them to, one, talk to their landlord.
Right.
2, read the lease. The lease requires, the Chicago area lease requires the landlord to actively market the property. So if you do need to jump and they've got a long tail, they've got to actively market the property. And 3, they've got to allow you the right to find a subtenant that's acceptable, and they can't unreasonably do it. So there are ways for you to get out from under a lease that you may have signed in May and shift. So it's worth having that conversation with your landlord. It's worth knowing your rights under the lease ordinance in Chicago. So those are things that you're not stuck for another year, is what I'm saying.
Right.
Not necessarily stuck.
And understanding that you can put as little as 3% down, 5%, what that all means. Yeah. Yep.
And
Let's switch gears a second. We're talking about renters going to buy. What about those who want to move up and are afraid to sell their place because they haven't found a new place? And in fact, maybe they know that the place they're going to buy is going to be hotly sought after. So they need to be positioned such that they can immediately put in an offer.
Yeah.
What do you recommend? You talked to clients of mine recently about a similar situation.
Yes, which was very exciting for them because they were like, well, how do we time it perfectly? We don't want to list our place because we have nowhere to go. How do we buy a place first and then so that we, aren't living in between or having to move twice? So there's 3 really good options for this situation. And so having talked to them, we talked about, so the first thing that they have to be able to do as far as qualifying is they have to be able to qualify to carry the cost of the new place and the cost of the current place. So if you can meet that criteria from a debt to income ratio, then the options open up, right? So let's just say that you can do that. You have enough income to carry the debt of both homes. But then the problem becomes, well, all of my equity or most of my equity is, of course, in my current home. And I really need the proceeds from the sale of that to go towards the future place. So there's a couple different ways to handle that. So one is if you haven't listed your house, you could apply for a home equity line of credit so that you can access your equity prior to selling it. So that's one option. Another option is looking for other ways to get this down payment, which could be through a 401k loan to yourself. Lots of 401k plans will allow you, for the purpose of a down payment for a primary residence, not an investment property, will allow you to take a loan to yourself without paying you're not taking that withdrawal and getting paid, paying the tax penalties. And then of course you have to pay it back. So you could use that as an option to get this money to use for the down payment. And the third option is, so let's say you have some money, and like enough to make a 5% down payment in your savings account. You could buy the new place with the small down payment of 5%, close on that property, then sell your current place and take the proceeds from there and do what's called a recast on your mortgage. And what the recast, so of course you can always pay down your mortgage. You can always pay down the principal, but your payment doesn't change, just the balance of your mortgage changes. But through a recast, what you're doing is you're saying, I would like to take this $200,000 that I've just sold my place, and I would like to recast my mortgage. Put the $200,000 down, and now your payment is going to be based on the new loan amount. It's called a recast. Most investors do it, and they usually charge a nominal fee, $300. Chase actually doesn't even charge a fee, which is unusual. But and that's how you go from your current place to your future place without having that lump sum. And not obviously keeping that high payment that you have when you initially start out with the 5% down payment. So as long as you make one mortgage payment, you apply for the recast, you take that money, they recast it, now you have your payment exactly where you wanted it. And so these clients that I was talking to, they were kind of stressed out. They know they're going to sell their condo immediately, right? And so it's not really a risk to buy something because they know they're going to have this place sold and they're going to have the money. So for them, it was really an eye opener. They have 3 options, and they met the first criteria. So you have to talk to a lender. You have to have the lender run the numbers, and then you've got lots of options.
Well, that sounds
Awesome.
great. That sounds really great.
Yeah, a lot of people don't know about the recast. So, and I would say definitely I've been, over the last several years, since the pandemic, I would say that lots of people are using that as an option, so that they don't have to buy and sell at the same time, which is really tricky and hard to do, as we know, especially in this market. It's really tricky.
Right.
So that's how we do that. I know we also wanted to talk a little bit about some of the things that after you close, I have like a little spiel that I talk to my clients about what to beware of once you close on a mortgage. So when you close on a mortgage, it becomes public information that you have this mortgage, and you will get all kinds of solicitation in the mail. And it looks really good. I mean, even they take like our Key Mortgage. I've had clients send me pictures of mail that they've gotten about telling them that they need to buy a home warranty, and it has Key Mortgage on there. It doesn't look like
I just got that. I got several of them.
It's amazing. Yes.
And it looks official.
First-time buyers, they have no idea. They have just absolutely no idea. So lots of solicitation. For the most part, all those warranties, all those extra things you do not need. I would say the best thing is, if there's something that you're really questioning, talk to your lender, but just expect to get all kinds of that, after you close. And then the other thing,
just as a note, sometimes they say, here, spend $150 and we'll give you a copy of your title.
Oh, right.
Let everybody, when you close, your title is recorded. It's not like a car title where you have to have it and sign it over to somebody. That's why you pay title insurance. The title's recorded with the county, and that home is yours.
Right.
So,
and the other thing, checking exemptions. I know we talked about that. Making sure that you apply for your homeowner's tax exemption with Cook County or whatever county you live in. It's amazing how many people don't realize they don't have those exemptions. So that's also an important thing to note at closing, that you want to make sure that you do that. And yes.
Well, going back to home warranty, because I do recommend to a number of my clients to get a home warranty, sometimes for the first year, but we would talk about it. Don't do anything that comes in the mail, because if you're getting old mechanicals or something like that, it's just worth having a home warranty to get you through the first year where you're on your feet, and maybe you continue with it, but the solicitations through the mail.
Right.
Good Lord.
Right.
Spam.
Yeah, exactly.
So CarolAnne gave us a cool little chart.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to put this in the comment section below the show. And if you can't access it that way, let us know. But this is we want to explain this, CarolAnne, how this chart works. And we'll come down here to 7%, just for example's sake.
Yeah, so this is just a way to help you figure out what the principal and interest is. And there's another part of it where it explains and I don't have it up in front of me, but what was the factor? It was like, you multiply this
for every 1,000 of the loan, this is the payment
for everything. Yeah. Okay. So when you're looking at trying to figure out what your monthly payment is going to be, and you're looking at a listing, let's say, you can tell easily in the MLS what the assessments are, what the taxes are. And homeowners insurance is usually also, listed, or people know how to figure out that. But the most important thing is the principal and interest. And so this helps you just figure out, and again, mortgage calculators are out there, but this is a way for you to, going up and down an interest rate, and see what the principal and interest is. And it's also interesting too, because, a lot of people get hung up. I mean, I'm not kidding you. The difference between a client, when you say the interest rate is 7% versus 6.875, we all know that psychologically we like the 6 in front of the number. The difference in the payment between 6.875 and 7 is like, I mean, of course, it depends on the loan amount, but we're talking a small number. And that's the thing that when I start showing people, okay, the difference between, an eighth or a quarter of a point in the interest is so small in the monthly payment that, people are saying, oh, it's 7%, I'm not going to buy. Okay, well, at 6.5, you would. That's great. You're saving $60. So you're going to sign a lease. You're going to agree to a 20% increase in your rental because we're at 7 instead of 6.5. You show those numbers, it's like crazy. You would never do it if you knew the facts, if you knew the numbers. So interest rates are, you got to understand, what does the interest rate mean to you?
I think how do you get people to not be afraid? Because I find when I'm talking to renters often, they're afraid to find out what it would mean, what the payment would be, what the difference between 6.85 and 7 is. I just say, have a conversation. Costs you nothing.
Right.
No, but there is a fear that it's probably, I think they think it's going to be worse news than they thought. And instead it's better news than you thought.
It's better.
You know what I mean?
It's better. It's almost always better from, I mean, and I have these conversations a lot. And so anybody out there listening, it's having a consultation with a lender it really is. There's no risk. There's no harm. There's no risk. At the end of it, you decide, you know what, I'm going to sign another lease. Oh, that's great. At least you've had the conversation. You've educated yourself. You've learned like what it's going to take to make that next step. Maybe it's not right for you right now, but at least you understand the process.
So let me ask you this, CarolAnne, for our viewers out there who are currently renting, have never owned before, and they want to have a consultation with you and find out what their situation truly is.
Yep.
How does that happen? Do they reach out to you and say, CarolAnne, let's talk? And then what do they need to have prepared in order to have a meaningful conversation with you?
I mean, really, really nothing. I mean, we just talk about, ultimately to run the numbers, having their income documents, but I don't even need that. It's really just a conversation. As long as they know how much income they make, and they know, how much savings they have, we can just run through scenarios. There's no strings attached. I do it all the time. Having a conversation with me doesn't mean you need to buy anything. Doesn't even mean you need to apply for a mortgage. You don't even need to apply for a mortgage. This is just education. This is, let's have a conversation and let's talk about how can we get you, if not now, maybe in a year, to a place where you're comfortable buying. And so I'm happy to talk to people all day long about this with no strings attached. And I love having the conversation because it's always enlightening for the client.
And here's the thing that also scares people a little bit. They're scared of getting their credit pulled.
Yeah.
That.
No, this is just a conversation. This is let's talk.
And I think some of them are afraid to find out what their credit score is. So they're a little worried that they'll find out during this conversation what their credit score is.
Mm-hmm.
It only is if you want it to be.
Right.
Conversation can go anywhere. If you don't want to know, you don't have to know.
Exactly.
It's really funny how people are afraid of information. And the answer is, it's always good to know.
It's always good to know. It's always good to know. And, you know, everybody, you know, it's like everybody has their different path, and maybe, you know, people haven't made the best financial decisions, and that's what keeps them renting. They feel like, oh, you know, I racked up those credit cards when I first got out of college, and I'm not going to be, and so they're hesitant to have those conversations. And, you know, for me, it's like, I want to help everybody get on the right path, and there is a right path for everybody. You cannot just stay focused and stuck in your mistakes. It's all about moving forward and getting people on the right path. So there's a path for everybody to home ownership. So
excellent.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, CarolAnne, thank you for being with us today. Thank you for sharing all this wonderful information.
Absolutely.
And folks, we will have CarolAnne's information in the comments below, so you'll be able to reach out to her directly.
Yeah.
Thanks, CarolAnne.
You're welcome.
And we will see you next time.
All right. You guys have a great week.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Oh, there we go. Oh, all right. So
I learned a lot, as I always do when we talk to CarolAnne.
Exactly. That was good stuff. All right. Do we want to take, well, we can just cover everything next week.
Just a quick piece of news, and that's sort of interesting as a Chicagoan. Good news, Baird Warner now is moving into Florida. We're opening brokerages in Florida, which is great because Florida is a big market for second homes for Chicagoans, as I think everyone who's watching us knows. But then I saw some news that it sort of freaked me out a little bit. And I think this is a trend that Floridians really know, is insurers, property insurers, not homeowners insurance, but home insurance, property insurance. Insurers are getting out of Florida, which is make things tricky. So when you've got this great idea that you want to move to Florida, and I think it's a great idea to get a property in Florida, start with thinking, is this insurable? I don't want people to get their hopes up and have challenges. So I thought that was very interesting. It was Farmers, who's the most recent one to pull back out of Florida, both for automobile and which also gets destroyed during weather events, but also property insurance. And I thought that was like,
No, that's interesting. I was listening to a podcast this week where they were talking about California, and where single family homes had previously been insured for $8,000 a year, jumped to $25,000 per year. So, it's happening in a lot of these places where they're experiencing weather phenomenon, and we don't have those issues.
And there's a heat dome right now over the Southwest, bringing temperatures really, really high. And we think, oh, well, just stay inside. But the impact of this sustained heat on property, on buildings, and on construct is formidable. And so, yeah, these are wonderful places in the winter, but or can be. But yeah, Chicago,
challenging.
Cold days, we're fine.
So one thing quickly too, since we're talking about weather. Both of us had clients who struggled with the rain a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
And whereas I don't want to minimize that, and I feel bad for anybody who has that, there are both things that Chicago has done to minimize flooding, and there are things that new construction has done, or things you can even do as a homeowner to minimize that. So Kyle's aware, many in Chicago are aware, that we have a deep tunnel system that takes in the water and holds it until it can slowly be dealt with. But there are occasions where the deep tunnel gets too full. We also have sewers that, under the second Mayor Daley's administration, they put in these slow flow in the sewers so the water doesn't like whoosh into the sewer system. When I was in Lakewood, Balmoral, many of my neighbors' basements flooded. And once they put in these low flow systems, and you may see this in your neighborhood, you'll see water standing in the streets and you're like, why is this water standing in the street? That doesn't look right. Well, that's because the sewers are only taking so much water in. So that's actually, the water in the street is protecting your basement from getting extra moisture. And then, of course, new construction, like the duplex downs, they do French drain tiles, and they do all these sump pump system, ejector pumps, so that you don't, check valves, so that you don't get water in your basement. So if you have had water in your basement, I recommend getting professionals in to help you prevent that in the future. But we're so much better than we used to be.
And you probably have noticed in some neighborhoods that they've pulled up some of the concrete in the streets and on the not on the sidewalk so much, but in the streets, in the crossings in particular, to put brick pavers. And those are to let water flow into the groundwater and not into the sewer. So it's helping to absorb into the ground instead of just into the sewer. And I'm seeing that in a number of parking lots. So the city, it's not something we can fix overnight, but the city has been taking steps to address the really upsetting situation when we get these weather events.
So if you need any service providers to help you with that, let us know. The other thing is, and this is the other tip I have, if you have a real tough insurance claim, you may want to consult with what they call an insurance adjuster, who can be an advocate for you with the insurance company. And that's another service provider most people aren't aware of, but that's something to think about. And please reach out to us if you have that need as well.
That's good advice. Yay. Everyone have a great week. We've exceeded our time. It's been great talking to you, and we'll be back next week. Right, Anne?
Sounds great. Thanks, everybody.
Bye.